Welcome to note set number 4. Alright, so we're going to be creating linear equations, but it's going to be harder than last time. So last time it was super simple because I told you, if you remember, that a linear equation is a straight line when you graph it, and it always looks like y equals mx plus b, where m is always with x because m is your slope, and b is always by itself with no x, and it is your y-intercept, which is how much you start with. And then I can tell you any x, like any amount of time that has passed, and you can figure out the y, the amount. But when we're creating these equations, what we're really looking for is figuring out the m and the b. So if I just tell you, create an equation with a slope of 3 and a y-intercept of -5, it's really simple, because it's y equals m, which is slope, and that's 3x, and then plus b, but it's -5, so instead of writing plus -5, we just write -5. So, what if you don't know the y-intercept? So that's something I can take away from you to make this just a little bit harder. I'm going to show you what to do if you don't know it. So for example, we're going to create the equation of a line that has the slope of 1/2, but you know it goes through this point. So on the graph, you know that point exists, 4, 7. And you know the growth is 1/2, but you need to somehow figure out your starting amount. How much did you start with for the equation? So we know that y equals slope, which is 1/2, x plus b. But I don't know this b. But you know what I do know? I do know it goes through this point. So a point is always x first, then the y. So there's tons of points on this graph, but what I do know is that when x is 4, it has to equal 7. Whatever b is, whenever 1/2 x, when x is 4, it has to equal 7. Because that's what the point's telling me. It says it goes through that point. But I know that I'm adding some b. I just don't know what that b is. Well, I can solve for b. So 1/2 times 4, I'm going to copy the 7. This means 1 times 4, which is 4, then divide by 2, and 4 divided by 2 is 2, plus b. So if I do 1/2 times 4, I got the 2. And then to solve for b, I need to minus this 2 away. So I find out that my starting amount, my b, is 5. So now I've solved for b. So then my real equation is y equals 1/2 x plus 5. Because I found the b and I was able to put it in the equation. I don't need to keep the 4 and 7 there because I just used that point to figure out what b had to be to make it work, to make it true. Because my equation should always have a y and an x written like y and x, because equations have x and y's. All right, so then I'm going to do a second one. This one says create the equation of a line that has a slope of -3 that goes through the point 9, -15. So again, I'm going to just set up what I know. Y equals slope is -3, x plus b. Don't know b. But what I do know is that with my x, if I plug in the 9, because the first number is always the x, it should equal the -15. But don't forget I still have that plus b at the end. So then 9 times -3 is -27. Solve for it, I need to add the 27 over because it's negative to find out that b equals 12. So then my equation is y equals -3x plus 12. All right, I'm going to go ahead and erase this so that we can move forward to the next page. Because I can make it even harder, because I can take away your slope. So, what if you don't know the slope too? So we don't know the y-intercept and we don't know the slope. Here are our steps. Step 1, find slope using the formula. Step 2, find b by plugging in a point. So step 2 is just like what we did before once we have the slope. But first we got to get the slope. Remember, the formula for slope is how much your amount is changing, and amount is y. So what's the difference between your two y's? So subtract them to figure out how much you're changing by, divided by how much time has passed. And time is your x, so you subtract your two x's to figure out how much time has gone by. So you just use your little formula for the change in y over the change in x, find your slope, and then do what we did before. So I'm going to scroll so we can do our examples. So I'm going to find the slope using the formula. I'm going to rewrite the formula because I scrolled past it, but it's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So this is my first point. So remember, it's always xy, xy. And on my first point, I'm going to put little ones. And on my second point, I'm going to put little twos. So I know which one's first and which one's second. And then I'm going to use my formula. So I'm going to take my second y, which is 1, and minus my first y, which was 7, divided by my second x, which is 10, minus my first x, which is 4. So 1 minus 7 is negative 6. And then 10 minus 4 is positive 6. And negative 6 divided by positive 6 is negative 1. So my slope is negative 1. This is my m. This is my formula for slope. So that was step 1. So now, I'm going to say y equals my slope x plus b, but I don't know what b is. I put my slope there. I put negative 1. And then I can plug in either point. It doesn't matter. I can use the 4 and the 7, or I could use the 10 and the 1. They will give me the same answer. So let's use the 4 and the 7 because it's first. So the y of that point, 7, equals negative 1, parentheses x was 4, plus b. Negative 1 times 4 is negative 4, plus b. Add my 4 to find out that 11 is b. So then my equation is, my final equation, y equals, my slope was negative 1x, and then my b was 11, so plus 11. And that is my formula for the equation of the line that goes between those 2 points. I'm going to erase it and do it again for another example. So, scrolling down, I have 2 new points. Again, I need to find slope by using this formula. So I'm going to xy, point 1, point 2. All right, so I'm going to use my formula. y2, my second one was 9, minus my first y is 5, over my second x is 6, minus my first x is negative 2. It's really important that you realize that the formula has a minus and the point is a negative, which gives us a double negative. So then 9 minus 5 ends up being 4, but 6 minus negative becomes plus 2 is 8. And you could either reduce this to 1/2, because 4 divided by 4 is 1, and 8 divided by 4 is 2. Or if you put it in a calculator, you'd get 0.5, because 0.5 is the same thing as half. I like fractions more. I'm going to keep it as a fraction. So then I have y equals the slope I just found, x plus b, because this was my m if you remember my slope. And then I get to pick either point. Doesn't matter which one. I'm going to go with the first one because it's first. So in the first one, y is 5. And you had 1/2, and then x was negative 2 plus b. So 5. If you type in 1/2 times negative 2, you will get negative 1 because half of negative 2 is negative 1. And then to solve for b, I add that one over because it's negative and find out that b equals 6. So then my actual equation, when all is said and done, is y equals my slope, which is 1/2 x. Oops, that's an x. And then my b was a positive 6. And that's my equation for this one.